appreciate your coming. I'm Judy Manning, Chair of Children and Youth, and I'm delighted to see all of you, but especially our two young folks that are joining us for today's discussion on House Resolution 10. That's not right. 633. Excuse me. If I can, could let's see. Do I have a volunteer to do the invocation for our committee? Anybody? Terry?
Certainly. Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for this day and for the word that's before us. Heavenly Father, help our endeavors to be blessed and those that would be in step with your will and your hopes and our plans for these young people. Heavenly Father, I thank you for everyone in attendance, every member of this committee, and the work we endeavor to do for the children in this state. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We will begin with, I guess we'll begin with the good stuff. Let's go ahead with House Resolution 633. Pat, where are you? I think every member of the committee will have this resolution in their folder. We passed it out last year, I think, as you will recall.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for allowing us this opportunity to present the work that's been done on House Resolution 1633. I'd like to introduce Mr. Jerry Weiner, who is one of the co-chairs of the Oversight Committee that was named in that resolution, and he is going to guide the rest of the program.
Okay. I think it's 633, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, you said 16, I believe. So just, I think everybody's got the resolution.
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Weiner.
Thank you for this opportunity. I am Jerry Weiner. I'm co-chair of the Oversight Committee that was set up under House Resolution 633. I also have an older brother who is developmentally disabled. He will be 66 this year.
Good for him.
The Children's Freedom Initiative, as you know, is a coalition from the Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities, the Institute on Human Development and Disability at the University of Georgia, the Statewide Independent Living Council, the Georgia Advocacy Office, and People First of Georgia. The goals of CFI are very simple, starting from the statement that no child should be institutionalized. We want to ensure that children that are currently in institutions are able to live in loving, caring family situations. In addition, once those children are moved out of those institutions, we think those beds should not be refilled. We're here to update you on the progress being made under Resolution 633 with respect to the Oversight Committee and the movement of these children out of institutions. It was passed unanimously by the House in 2005, as you know. It urges the Departments of Human Resource, Community Health, Labor, Education, and Juvenile Justice to develop a plan to move these children out of these institutions. Today we're looking at right around 100 children that are still children, I say under 21 years of age, that are still in state and private institutions and nursing homes, and we want to move them into the community over the next 4 or 5 years. The House Resolution 633 calls on agencies to submit a plan to Speaker Richardson by this July 1st, 2006, and to provide annual progress reports. The bill also establishes the Oversight Committee, and a list of the members of this committee are in the packet. Members were chosen to involve a variety of constituencies that feel that this issue is important. This includes parents and other family members, individuals with disabilities, advocates, service providers, policymakers, and the like. We feel that progress to date is being made to develop this plan, and that the proposed budget, the 2007 budget that we know you all are working very hard on right now, has allocation for over 40 children, about almost half of the target population, to move into homes with families in the next year. The Children's Freedom Initiative, the underlying rationale, again, to us is that no child should ever have to grow up in an institution. Children belong with loving, supportive families, not in nursing homes or state hospitals. Children are institutionalized primarily because the families do not have the supports that they need to take care of their children that have a variety of developmental disabilities or chronic medical issues. It is indeed always a choice of last resort. The national trend is recognizing that the best care can be given at home, and that institutions are incredibly more expensive, both in terms of the direct out-of-pocket cost and the long-run human cost. From my own perspective, as I mentioned, I have an older brother. He's almost 66 years old. He was born in 1940. If we think back to what the world was like in 1940, we know that there was no attention being paid to these issues. The advice my parents got regarding my brother was send him away, forget about him, and start over. My parents didn't do that until we were living in Illinois shortly after I was born, and my brother was about 12 years old. My parents were very frustrated. My brother was difficult to handle, and they put him in an institution. 9 months later, my parents brought him home because they couldn't bear to see what was happening to him. Now, admittedly, this was 1953, 54 in Illinois. But the fact that my brother was scarred emotionally forever from this experience, and this was only a 9-month experience with a 12-year-old, I think is a significant indication of the negative impact that I experience, that I see on a first-hand basis, that my brother continues to live with today. I'm also an entrepreneur. I've been very fortunate in the opportunities and the successes I've had. So I understand the need for a quote-unquote return on investment. We can't just throw money at these things. We've got to make sure that the care and services that we provide for people with disabilities are not just efficient, but are effective in terms of giving these people the types of lives that the rest of us pretty much take for granted. We want to show you a short video here. It takes just a few minutes. It's got messages from two perspectives. One is family members of people with disabilities, and the other perspective is that no child should have to grow up in an institution. This video shows both kids that are at risk of institutionalization and children who have actually lived in institutions. So if you would look on at the screen.
Does somebody want to dim the lights for us a little bit so we can see a little better?
He was about 7 years old, I believe, when they first sent him to Laurel Heights. She was in a facility that I really did worry about her a lot because I didn't know what they might do to her.
Her suggestion was for me to give my son over to DFACS. I didn't know what to do. So somebody suggested that I see Parkwood.
We've been going in circles. If anybody, seeing this tape, looking at this tape, we need some help.
We were referred to the Marcus Institute, where she's been diagnosed with schizophrenia. I wonder how can I get that lifted off of her record, because it actually limits her services with her having a dual diagnosis of MR and schizophrenia. I don't really want my child to go to a residential facility and stay. I kind of don't know what it's like there, and because I don't know what goes on in those facilities, I get kind of shaky and fearful. So really, I've thought about it, but I just think institutions are a scary place to put a child this young. So if I had a choice, I would not want my child to be in an institution.
Give me my hand. I was 25 years old. Right. Alone by myself, all that good stuff. I can't work and take care of her and take her to therapy in Augusta, because I lived in Waynesboro, and then I had to take her to Augusta 2 or 3 times a week for therapy. And I didn't know what to do. So, and somebody suggested that I see Parkwood. She's improved a little in a few areas, but not like I think she should. They don't really have enough, I don't think they have enough stuff for them to do. They get bored. pretty easily. They mostly watch TV.
Funding is a big problem because once they're here, the state feels like they're safe and they don't make the amends to get them into a less restrictive environment as far as the funding is concerned. So that's the biggest problem that I have. If somebody's ready for discharge or if the family wants them in another environment, it's a big fight to get the funding for them. I got several that are ready to be in less restricted environments, but due to the funding not being available, they're still here.
Where's Fred? He's coming. My son has a community service worker. The funding is here, but since they combine regions, she said she don't know if, he would be a high priority because the most defects kids are first. So her suggestion was for me to give my son over to defects. It's not like I would be neglecting him, she said, but it would be like I'm just trying to get help for him. I think defects is for children that are neglected and abused or that don't have anywhere to go, not for a child that has a family that's asking for help. Just asking for someone to help them, teach him some skills where he could function in society.
I wasn't looking to institutionalize her. At Atlanta Regional, she was placed in a unit for violent children, adolescents, but not necessarily children with any diminished mental capabilities. We had to go there often to make sure she was being cared for. I mean, she wasn't being bathed, she wasn't being sent to school for a long time. She was actually there 81 days. It just got so depressing to me to leave her there for that amount of time that I felt like I'd had a couple of months break, that I was just going to bring her back home and see if we couldn't, if she was better, or if she wasn't better, I was just willing to go back to what I had. It was just not a good situation to leave her in the hospital. And so we decided to bring her back home.
What are some things that you've always wanted to do?
Play for the NBA. What we gonna do after we come to McDonald's? Go after McDonald's.
It's true. As she leave, I start crying because I miss her. I miss the whole family. But my grandma's the main one I miss.
It hurts. It really does. I just want him back with us, back in the house with me.
I'm gonna graduate, and then I'm gonna get a job. I don't know what job yet. That's what I'm asking. Do other people believe in me? If I could believe in myself.
Well, that was quite moving.
Yeah, and I have to tell you from my own personal experience, this is quite typical. I'm happy to report that my brother today is doing reasonably well. He lives in an independent situation with supports. He is not in Georgia. He's in Iowa, which is where I grew up. And he has a good situation, but it wasn't always like that for him. I remember my mother crying in 1960 when President Kennedy was elected, because she knew at that point that there would be some federal government assistance because of President Kennedy's sister having mental retardation. And my mother worked tirelessly really up until the time she died in order to help provide additional services. So this is a fairly typical display of some of the choices that parents, I would say choices they have to make. They really don't have a choice a lot of times because they don't have the support services that they need in order to be able to keep these children at home. One of the most important partners we have in this effort, of course, is the Department of Human Resources. DHR is the lead agency in developing the plan that will move these children into homes with permanent, loving families. Steve Hall is here today as Director of Office of Developmental Disabilities in the Division of Mental Health. In the mental health, developmental disabilities, addictive diseases, and he's with us today to give us an update on what the department's doing in this regard. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chairman Manning. I have some, what I'm going to read off of very quickly. I think that Mark's going to share this time with me to the our state Medicaid director.
Eric, you want to help him give those out? You folks in the audience, I hate to leave you in the dark, but we don't seem to be able to find the lights. So I apologize for that. You see, Eric, you think we're going to be able to bring them up? Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Here we go.
I'll just continue quickly. The first year of what you see what we're internally calling this the Kids Project, but for the first year we're going to concentrate on the folks who are in one of Georgia's institutions. So that would be 45 kids right out of the gate, and every budget that we've seen has these children included in it. So that's really great news. So that's the start of it. It just let you know that it also supports the state's policy regarding the Olmstead decision. Here are the 45 kids. You can see where they are. The SNF stands for Skilled Nursing Facility. ICFMR is Intermediate Care Facility for the mentally retarded is what it stood for. But basically 6 in Atlanta Regional, 14 in Central State Hospital, 13 in East Central Regional. I'm just combining those columns. 2 in Northwest Regional, and then 17 in Southwest Regional State Hospital. 6 of the kids are in defects custody. 20 are have parents with legal guardians. 19 are between the ages of 18 and 21 and have not been adjudicated as incompetent. Many have complex medical and significant behavioral challenges. All placements will be made using our mental retardation waiver program. So there'll be a match of about 39%, or Mark would know those figures more exact than I think about 39% state dollars, 61% federal dollars. DMH will provide the criteria for making sure that those needs are met, even no matter what those challenges may be. We're using things like the person-centered plan and health risk screening tool to make sure the health needs are met. We're using something called a supports intensity scale to be sure we have the right amount of dollars attached to what the child may need. Again, we're going to use a mix of both private and state-operated providers, talking with the families and giving everybody choices about where they would like to be. And we're going to have what's also good news is with the new waivers coming, that the families will have a lot of flexibility with the funding, and everybody will have flexibility with where the dollars go. So that's this part. But let me just say this part real quick: is that we've been out there with the kids now, and so we've actually met the kids and have met with them. And this is the best part. It's really great. It's not what we thought we would see. The kids really want to go. The parents really want them to go. It's very, very different than we anticipated. We anticipated so many children with such complex medical needs that it would be like, well, this is going to be really, really tough. And it still is going to be very tough for many of the children. But, boy, some of the children we met, or many of the children we met, and families, it's just delightful. This is long overdue, and it's even though we're in the very earliest stages and don't even have a dime dedicated to doing this yet, we've already started, and I think this is going to be a big success for all of us. So.
Are there members of the committee with questions of Steve? Representative
Yes,
Ash.
Representative.
You talk about 45 children having this opportunity. How many children are there that could take advantage of the opportunity who will not have it?
Well, I think that I'm not certain, but I heard numbers like 144. Some number was 160. Pat, do you?
163 is the one.
The latest kind of. Yeah. I mean, first question that our Medicaid director asked me, will this include folks from Parkwood? And I said, well, eventually yes, but in this first year for the funding, it will not.
And the follow-up is, how were these 45 selected from the number?
They were the folks that are served by the state of Georgia. They are in the state of Georgia's institutions.
They're in defects custody, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Well,
not all
of them. Not all of them. 6 of them are in defects custody.
Yeah, I see that. Sorry.
But they're served by in one of Georgia's institutions, and one of those 5 institutions that are listed there.
So we only have 45 in Georgia institutions.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
99 or someplace else.
That's right. Yeah, in private institutions or nursing homes.
Okay. Any other member of the committee have a question? Okey-doke.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the first phase.
Okay.
Now, Mark, you going to take a shot at this?
Certainly, Madam Chair, members of the committee, others present. It's my pleasure to be with you. Excuse me. I will tell you what we've done up to this point and what we know up to this point and how many folks are where and so forth. Actually, as of December of 2005, what Medicaid was paying for outside of state facilities, in other words, in private facilities, there were 61 children, not 90. Now, it may be that the 90, no, I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, but I can tell you that during fiscal year 2005, we actually placed 26 children out of private nursing homes into community placements. So it's possible that the differences in the numbers could be that. I don't know otherwise how to explain it, but we did do the count through in the month of December. There were 61 children. Now, what's interesting about that is that 41 of those 61 children are in Parkwood Developmental Center. That is a private ICFMR facility down in South Georgia. I believe it's in Valdosta or Tifton. And as Dr. Hall explained, our attempt to assess their needs and hopefully move them to other placements will occur as they have been able to move through the children that are in the state-operated facilities right now. We had 20 children in other private skilled nursing facilities around the state, and it's pretty much scattered. There's actually only one facility that had more than one child. All the rest had one. And we've been able to move one of those 20, so we should be down to 19 now in private skilled nursing facilities since December.
Are those classified as nursing homes, though?
Yes, they are nursing homes.
So those children are in nursing
skilled
homes.
Nursing homes, yes, ma'am. And as I said, no nursing home except Westwood Nursing Center has 3 children. All the rest that are on the list, I won't name them all, but just have one child in the home. Now, we did attempt to go and place all of the children in the skilled nursing facilities. As I said, we've not gotten to the ICFMR yet, but in the skilled nursing facilities, and those that are remaining are there for one, basically, of 2 reasons. There were a small number, 2 or 3 children, that were just not medically stable enough or safe, in the treating professional's opinion, to be moved home. But the balance had custody issues. Either, or in all cases, the guardian, whether that guardian was the state or an actual natural guardian, advised us that they did not desire for that child to be moved from the nursing home. So obviously our effort as an insurer, as a payer, is we then moved on. Now it may well be that other advocacy organizations may want to dig a little deeper on those, and it may be that some of the custody issues, whether it's in the state or otherwise, could be resolved and the guardians would consent for those children to be moved. Presuming they can be safely served in the community, we certainly would be in line to try to make that happen and do the best that we could to make it happen. That's kind of our report in a nutshell, Madam Chair, and certainly entertain any questions.
Are there questions of members of the committee? Mark, you must have done an excellent job. I would ask, though, that we perhaps even call or request that the child advocate look into those children that are still left and see if there are any resolutions that we can get for those kids to come out if we possibly can. That would be a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am.
Okie doke. Pat, are there other folks that are going to?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're
Sorry.
getting there. Okay. We appreciate your time. Georgia has had some experience closing a couple of institutions. One of those institutions that we're going to hear about today is Rivers Crossing, which was an institution for children with developmental disabilities. In addition, over 60 children were moved home from a variety of institutions in Georgia over the last 5 years, and the Institute on Human Development and Disability at the University of Georgia has been tracking those children who moved from Rivers Crossing. Zoe Stoneman is the director of the Institute and is here to share some of those experiences.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Our institute is located in the Rivers Crossing building in Athens, which was the home of a 40-bed, what's called an ICFMR, a small institution that served youth and children with some really substantial developmental disabilities and behavioral challenges, and for a few kids, some very substantial medical challenges. In July of 1996, that facility was the first in Georgia to totally close. At that point in time, there were 39 young people living there. They ranged in age from 9 to 22. They had been there for varying lengths of time. The one with the longest tenure had lived there for 20 years. Some of them went into institutional care during infancy and spent their entire childhood at one or another institution, winding up at Rivers Crossing. We did intensive interviews with the family of each of the individuals, visited each of the individuals, and talked with the people providing direct care support to them 1 year after they moved out, 4 years after they moved out, and 8 years after they moved out. So we have a lot of information about them. One of the really important things is that the news is very good. And I think it shows that Georgia can do this and can do it well in terms of moving some very complicated young people from institutional care to family and community care. One of the pieces that is a part of this study, that's a part of almost every study nationally, is that when the word went out the Rivers Crossing was going to close, 75% of the families said no. We do not want this to happen. This is a bad thing. 50% could not think of one positive thing to say about Rivers Crossing closing. They were very strongly against this. This was a good place, and the vast majority of families wanted their son or daughter to stay there. 1 year after it closed, 90% of those families said, you know, we were wrong. The quality of life of my son or daughter has really substantially improved. Didn't expect it. I was real scared. Didn't see this positive stuff coming, but it did. 90%. 8 years later, over 90% are still seeing improvement in their sons and daughters living in the community. So don't be surprised if people are afraid, and don't be surprised if people don't want what we're talking about to happen. But rest comfortably that Georgia knows how to support children and can do so in such a way that parents, after it happens, will thank you for making this happen for their son and daughter. Challenging behaviors improved, health improved. The families wound up really enjoying having their sons and daughters closer to them physically so they could see them more often. They talked about the joy they saw in their sons and daughters that they hadn't seen before, and they talked about improved safety. They saw gifts that their sons and daughters were giving to their communities and were very pleased with that. So what makes this happen? What makes it possible to close an institution and have it work for the children? One thing is leadership. Sally Carter, who was the director at that point in time, put her heart and soul and that of her staff into making this happen. We have people in the state within our government, Steve and other folks, who can put their hearts and souls into making this happen now. Careful planning. We're not talking about dumping children. The children from Rivers Crossing were not just dumped out there, somebody blew a whistle and they all got thrown someplace. There was very careful planning involving the families, involving the communities, involving providers, and this was done in a planful way. It has to be. And the supports have to be in place. Most of these families didn't want their kids institutionalized in the first place. They did it, as you've heard, only because what they needed wasn't there. They were desperate, and this was their only choice. The supports were in place when Rivers Crossing closed to do good things for these youngsters, these youth, who are now all young adults, living around and about all over Georgia. So yes, Georgia can do this. We know how to do this, and we can do this for all children. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions? Thank you very much.
Picking up on, I think, what is becoming a theme is that most of these families don't send their children to institutions because they want to. They send them there because they don't have the ability or the supports to maintain them effectively in a loving, caring home environment. Every family has different support needs, and location has a lot to do with that. Here in the metro Atlanta area, there are lots of agencies and other organizations that provide supports. When you get down into some of the more rural areas of the state, as you heard one mother say on the tape, you may have to drive miles and miles and miles just to find very basic supports for your children. So that's an issue long term that we're going to have to deal with as well if we're going to be effective in keeping these children out of these institutions. We'd like to introduce you to two people here. First, we're going to have Denise Bennett, who recently brought her daughter home from Georgia Regional Hospital. Denise, you saw on the tape that we showed you. And then after Denise is done, Al Duval is here, and Al spent his early years living at Brook Run. Denise?
Thank you for letting me share some of our family story with you. I'm here to tell you a little bit about my daughter, Jensen. She's 17. She's autistic. Mentally, she's about 2 years old. She's self-abusive, and she has very limited communication skills. When she was about 9 years old, she became violent and aggressive. She would scratch you, she'd pinch you, she'd bite. She got her hands on you, she was going to do physical damage to you. She would attack you while you were driving. She'd grab the steering wheel. She broke windshields. She chewed up the interiors of our cars. By the time she was 15, I really didn't feel like I could physically handle her daily episodes of violence anymore, and we started looking for a residential placement for her. We live near the Tennessee line, and there was just nothing near our home, so that led us to the Atlanta area. We found a place we were interested in, and we came down for an interview. On the way back home, she attacked me on the downtown expressway here in Atlanta, and that assault led her to be placed in Atlanta Regional. She stayed there for 81 days, as I said on the video, and it was a miserable time for our family. We worried about her constantly, and we worried because we visited her often there. We would go and she would be dirty. She would have dirty clothes on. Her hair was dirty. She lost hair. She lost about 20 pounds, but she just began to shut down. The staff there at Atlanta Regional always told us the food was horrible, so we always took her something to eat each time we visited her. And she just got to where she would take a few bites and then she was ready to go back to her room. I was an emotional wreck to see Jensen in this state. It was worse, really, than having a death of a family member. While she was there, we continued to look for a placement for her, but we weren't able to find anything. And our regional board suggested that we turn her over to the state and let them have custody of her. I didn't really feel like that was an option at all, so the only option I had was to bring her back home. I felt like I had a break from the violence, and I was just going to have to suck it up, and live that way. But Jensen already had a community and a habilitation support service waiver, and that waiver provides her with some personal support. But in our area, she already had a reputation for being violent, but I contacted a previous caregiver, and she agreed to help us. And with that caregiver now, we share parenting of Jensen. It's much like a child that's from a divorced family that they have joint custody. And Jensen may start out her week at our home. She goes to school. She's delivered via the school bus because we live close by to her caregiver's home. She may spend the night with the caregiver, go to school the next day, go back to the caregiver's home, and then come home that night bathed and ready for bed. And then I may have her the next day. It just depends on our schedule. Jensen usually stays only 2 days with her caregiver because that's her preference. We know after 2 days she's ready to come back home. The free time our family receives from this is very important, and it's also very liberating because we have complete trust in the family caring for her, plus we're only minutes away if something happens. Jensen left the institutional setting. She's back in her school and she's back in her community, and as her family, we oversee her education and her medical care. We're housing her, feeding her, clothing her, and we're accomplishing that with the help of one full-time person. Jensen's still difficult, but she doesn't deserve to be locked away because of her challenging behaviors. She deserves the help and the support that her waiver provides our family so we can keep her at home. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Tell her we said hi.
Good afternoon, Chairman. How are you? My name is Al Duvall. I'm from the Sandy, Georgia, in DeKalb County. I was once a child placed in an institution called Brook Run. I was there for 19 years. While I was in the institution for 19 years, I've experienced and saw the other children abused and neglected, and it was just a horrible sight. None of them saw their families. I was one of the lucky ones that did. I got out in 1994, and now we're in 1975. Since I've been out, I became an American citizen. I had more freedom than I did in the institution. I had more choices. I can vote, and I can do whatever I please to do. I am gainfully employed at the International House of Pancakes, which I've been there for 3 years. I pay rent and I pay bills just like any normal American citizen would, and I really enjoy it. I see my family, not as much, but I do see them, because I've never lived with them but for 1 year. I think families are important, and I think that children should be with their normal family. I am an advocate for the people who cannot speak for themselves. I am vice president of the People First Atlanta chapter, and I really enjoy doing the advocacy that I do. My independence has become stronger. I think community-based care is fantastic and really important. And I have a bigger social life now instead of being isolated like I was in an institution. Church is another thing that is very important to me. None of them, the children in the institution, doesn't have the to, or doesn't have a choice of religion, whereas in the community. I think that's important. All in all, I think the community is the best place for a child, and the institution is not, because of the abuse and neglect that I saw. And I really, really like being out in the community, and the food is better. You can't, going back to food in an institution, it was horrible. So, well, there's that. That's just some of the things that I like to do, and really appreciate the time that you put in to come hear us, because this is a very important cause, and I'm glad it's being supported, and I hope that we get more people out, because nobody should ever live the way I do, the way that I used to. So thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much. Questions? Anybody? Thank you very much.
Okay. Before we wrap up here, I would like to introduce my co-chair, Terry Langley. Terry, can you just stand up there real quick? And her son, Christian. Terry is a single mom, works full-time, and takes care of her son, Christian, as well. Again, it's the issue of making sure that we get these families the supports they need, and that we take an attitude that it is unacceptable for any child to grow up in an institution, period. We have a responsibility, I think, to take care of those that legitimately cannot take care of themselves, and to provide their families with the supports and assistance they need to be able to do that. Again, this was a progress report today. We feel good about the progress being made. On the one hand, we can say there are only 100 and some odd kids left. On the other hand, 100 and some odd kids is 100 and some odd way too many. So, again, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your support and attention on this, and we'd be happy to answer any last questions that you have.
Members of the committee, any questions? Thank you very much. We've looked forward to this day, and you did an excellent job. Thank you very much. Very informative. And thanks to all of you who did testimony. We really appreciate your time and effort to come down here. I know it's sometimes hard to get all this thing put together, but we really do appreciate it. And I know I speak for the members of the committee as well. Pat, are we? Everybody that wanted to speak on this particular issue has spoken. Representative Neal.
Tony, I just want to commend you, and thank you so much for coming today and sharing with us. And I want to say you're an inspiration to anybody who listened to what you have to say and what you have accomplished, and to see you being an advocate like you are. You inspire me, and I hope you. I just hope you understand how much you being here today meant to me. Thank you, Tony.
Okay, at this time, I think we have an amendment to the bill as passed last year. Representative Talton.
Yeah. Madam Chairman, I would like to amend this resolution by adding the Georgia Association of Homes and Service for Children on this resolution, if that's appropriate. I'd like to make a motion to that.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and make the motion and have the committee consider it, since it is really not changing substantive measures in the bill. Rather, it's adding one particular group to the advocacy part of the bill. So with that explanation, my understanding is this bill has passed the House. So if the motion is not allowed, do you have a ruling on that, Legislative Council? Do you?
We can amend the bill that's there.
Right, and then I'm not really sure legislatively how we can do that. All the people that are involved in the amendment are agreeable to it. It is just the adding. If Willie, if you'll go ahead, and then we'll open it for discussion.
Okay, I make a motion to the effect of adding that group to that resolution.
Okay, you want to name the group? Have
Yes.
you got it down there so we can get it for the
The
record?
name of the group is the Georgia Association of Homes and Service for Children.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay.
And we're doing this to the planning committee,
Right, that's correct. We're making this addition to the planning committee of what was passed out last year, House Resolution 633. The deal is that this resolution has never, these folks that have been added, or these folks that have been named in the resolution last year have never been appointed. So what we're trying to do today is to get the committee to go ahead and agree to the amendment so that we can again ask for these folks to be appointed so that the committee can continue with its work, even though it has not officially been appointed. They still would like to be appointed and still would like to continue with the work. Do I have a question? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, yes, I think I do have a question. So we passed this last year.
Right.
And it was never officially put in operation, but unofficially, it's been doing its work.
That's correct.
And so if it becomes official, and we officially appoint these people, our action today is to say that we want somebody from the Georgia Association of Homes and Services for Children to also be included.
Right.
And we want them included on the unofficial basis, if that's how it continues, or on the official basis, if that's how it continues.
That's correct. We hope it's going to be official. Representative Flood, do you have a question?
Just a clarification, Madam Chair. I was thinking along the same lines as Representative Ash. If the bill is already passed, then wouldn't we, in order to amend it, have to pass a new bill in the next session?
It was a resolution. It was only a House resolution. So what you're saying is that we need to adopt a new resolution?
That would be my opinion, yes, ma'am.
Well, how about, I'll tell you the truth, do we have time? I don't think we do. Even if it's in a resolution form. I'm just trying to think through this because I definitely want Norma's group to be added to it. However, I don't want it to nullify the bill as it currently is passed. If that's the will of the committee. Yes, Representative Neal.
Madam Chair, if they're already operating in an unofficial capacity, can they not add that one other individual in their unofficial committee in an unofficial capacity without us having to introduce new legislation?
I believe that would be agreeable to the group. I believe that's agreeable. Is that not right, Pat?
We
Yes.
have some other folks working with the committee. We had a summit last fall, introduced the work of the resolution to a much broader constituency. Mr. Adams was included in that, so was Easter Seals and some other providers around the state. And so we don't want to change the bill at this point. We want to keep this and just move forward. If we can get the speaker to appoint this group, that would be fabulous. But in the interest of keeping all the work going, we do bring in other.
What about adding the group ex officio? Would that be a possibility as well? Do I hear anybody that objects to that group being added ex officio to the work that is already unofficially being continued to continue? Since we're really hoping that we're going to be able to get this to be appointed officially, and I hate to really call the question, but we do have another issue that we need to get done. Yes, Representative Ash.
It seems to me that it doesn't much matter if y'all are official or unofficial. You're doing angels' work, and it needs to be done. And some official or unofficial seal doesn't make the quality of the work any better or more important. And what we've learned about today is absolutely incredible, powerful work. And I don't think making it official is going to make it one bit better.
Okay, Representative Flood.
Clarification. On page 2, line 25, the Speaker has the ability to appoint non-legislative members to the committee. And so that might resolve the issue of adding more appropriate individuals to the Oversight Committee without having to even worry about new legislation.
I think that's absolutely true. Do I hear a motion to go ahead and approve this again?
Motion. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, members of the committee, and thank you very much, Pat, for bringing this to our attention again. Now, I'd like very much for Dr. Hall to come back to the podium and talk to us just a few minutes about autism.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman Manning. I'll just give some words about autism, and if folks have questions, we can talk a little bit about that if you have. So autism is called autism spectrum disorders. That's because it includes autism and pervasive developmental disorders and something called Asperger's. You may have heard that. They used to be called, those folks were termed a high-functioning autism, but Asperger is that. People with autism differ greatly in how they think about things. They tend to think in, some of the research shows they think in pictures, where we're word thinkers, different ways of looking at reality. 40% of the children with autism do not talk at all, and behavior can significantly affect the family's routine. Eating out at a restaurant, family vacations, attending a friend's birthday party, some of those typical things can be absolutely impossible. According to the Center for Disease Control, it says between 1 in 500 to 1 in 166 children are born every year with autism spectrum disorders. So what that means is it is estimated that among the 4 million children born in the United States every year, approximately 24,000 then will have autism. That autism rate is growing, according to the U.S. Department of Education, and government agencies show autism is growing at a rate of 10 to 17%. How much of the increase is depends on some classification. We know this, that autism is 4 times more prevalent in boys than in girls. It shows no racial, ethnic, or social boundaries. Family income, lifestyle, educational levels have no effect on the occurrence of autism. Center for Disease Control found that for children ages 3 to 10 years, to be 3.4 children for every 1,000 children have autism. And this is a lower rate than mental retardation, which would be 9.7 children per every 1,000. But is higher than, today it's higher than folks with cerebral palsy, which is 2.8 children per 1,000 children. Treatment and cure, there is no known cure, and behaviors are related, usually present themselves before age 3. It's important, very important, as you'll hear others say, for early identification and to receive the appropriate intervention services as soon as possible. Medicine can relieve some of the symptoms, but structured teaching skills, often called applied behavior analysis, is currently the most effective treatment.
Okay. Are there questions of Dr. Hall about autism? I think we have 2 guests that have brought their stories to us very quickly. Tammy? Where are you? Okay, get out from behind her. You're hiding from me. I couldn't find you. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not.
I want to thank Judy Manning for inviting me and all of y'all for the opportunity today.
Tammy and I were in. Originally was from Cobb County and was a fellow realtor at one point in time.
Until this came along. I still do a little bit.
I brought this picture. This is my son Solomon, and of course I should say my name is Tammy Bailey Roner, but this is my son Solomon, who at age 6 was diagnosed with PDD, or pervasive developmental disorder. And I'm going to have to try not to be emotional, especially after watching the film. I can easily relate to some of the parents who think that institutions is the only avenue, or sending them to a family member to raise, because at times, even though he looks so normal, what you don't see is on the other side of this adorable face was a temper tantrum at any moment. And it absolutely wears on you day after day, and that's only one of his problems. But I want to tell you that the truth is, I'm not here solely for Solomon. As he mentioned, approximately 1 in every 166 children born in the U.S. Possibly will have an autism or something from the autism spectrum disorder. It's my hope that something I will say to you today will inspire you to fight for these children, because autism is not a death sentence, and it's not one of complete hopelessness. It can be a story that's not perfect, but definitely with a happy ending, as with my story. What I would like to pose to do is to pose a question to you. Is, in dealing with autism, is knowledge power or ignorance bliss? And it may sound ridiculous for me to say is ignorance bliss, but over the years I've met so many people who live in ignorance of the disability because of fear, embarrassment, pride, or maybe some of the symptoms which seem common in children, like tantrums, sensitivity to sound or touch, speech language delays, or food selectivity, are passed off as somewhat abnormal but not a severe disability. But collectively, these problems can wreak havoc on families. In high-functioning autistic children like my son, who at times exhibits normal characteristics, it is a constant struggle to reasonably assess his abilities. Others around you think you're crazy because he looks so normal, and you as a parent know there are what I call blind spots or holes in his logic. On the other hand, low-functioning children like Sue Rubin may be categorized with minimum potential because of their low abilities. Sue was featured in an April 11, 2005 article in People magazine and called Autism Breaking the Silence. And once labeled retarded, she is now a history major with a 3.98 grade point average, thanks to the development of an instrument called a facilitator communicator. So there is hope. From experience and these examples, I can tell you ignorance is not bliss. And in fact, I believe with autistic children, it can be both dangerous and a waste of potential. For that reason, I would like to take the next few minutes to tell you 4 areas where I believe we need to improve knowledge as to empower these families who deal with autism to help autistic children be the best they can be, and to minimize the suffering of both the children and the families. And those 4 areas include educating professionals, educating family members, educating autistic children, and educating society. It is a given that professionals who deal directly with diagnosing and treating these children are typically on the cutting edge of developments and treatments in this area. But it is also important, let me start over. There's 2 main reasons we must consider the importance of educating professionals whose jobs do not deal directly with treating and diagnosing these children, but may indirectly come across these children. And the reason that is so important is for the safety and well-being of the child, and to minimize the suffering and destruction of the caregivers. And let me give you a couple of examples. My son, a couple of years ago, had 2 surgeries which would normally be done in a doctor's office, and he had to be put to sleep because of his sensory issues. A lot of times I've heard that if they don't understand what they're going through, they just go out of control, and they're very, very strong. So whenever he's put to sleep and wakes up with an IV, he loses control and is in danger of hurting both himself and others. And it is very emotional as an adult to go to an emergency room and tell them how dangerous this is, and they look at you like, oh, sure. You know, he's going to cry like all the other kids do because nobody likes needles. But in essence, he does put himself and others in danger, and I believe this is going to become even greater as he increases in size, and weight. But I also know that, and I pray that somehow, some way, either through education or some of the procedures, that maybe they can minimize the pain. I know when they put him to sleep, they actually gave him something to drink first so that he did not know what was going on. So I believe continually working towards developing new ways to deal with these issues is very important. But first you have to acknowledge there's a problem there. Let's see. Please forgive me. Other problems with doctors who may deal indirectly with autism but may not understand the speech language problems of an autistic child arise because they do not understand that the autistic child's communication skills cannot be trusted. My son used to use a lot of filler words like, "My mommy had my birthday." And the nurse would think, "Oh, he is so cute, he just had a birthday," when in reality that's not true at all. His birthday was months ago. That's not a big deal. But what about if he's in an emergency room and the doctor's pressing on him and saying, "Does this hurt?" In reality, the child's responding to the fact that it hurts because he has sensory issues and he doesn't want to be touched, not because he's actually answering her question in context. And it's very hard to tell people who may not have had experience with this that this is a big problem. The second reason is we must educate professionals who do not directly diagnose and treat children but may encounter them is to minimize the suffering and destruction of parents, family members, caregivers, whatever. And simply for the reasons that you talked about earlier. Early diagnosis and intervention is so important. The diagnosis process did not begin for my son until he was 5.5, and it wasn't because I wasn't going to doctors and saying, "I'm experiencing this, I'm experiencing this." At less than 1, he was diagnosed with reflux, which the GI specialists, we all saw it. When they did the test, we all saw that there was something there. But we knew that reflux didn't quite fit. And I wish somebody would have said, "This doesn't quite make sense. Why don't you go to a developmental pediatrician like someone at the Marcus Institute?" Because had they diagnosed him earlier, it would have saved me a multitude of health problems. Probably right before he was diagnosed, I was having sleep problems, depression, severe reflux. I wanted to die at times and felt guilty for it because it was so exhausting dealing with all of his issues. And in reality, now that he's gotten help, he is such an awesome kid. Is he difficult? Absolutely. Can we live a normal life like, every other family? No. We have to control his environment and limit his interaction with other families. But we have somewhat of a normal life, and compared to where we were, I would take this any day at all. In retrospect, I believe that some of the doctors that should be aware of some of the characteristics of autism, because there was a possibility that their area of specialty overlapped some of the characteristics of autism, would include people like GI specialists, neurologists, pediatricians, and emergency room doctors, just to give you a few. Second, we must continue to promote and educate, to promote and produce quality education for the caregivers and extended family members. I believe we're already meeting some of those needs, but we must continue to make it of utmost importance. For me, my education and training probably began when I started getting help through Katie Beckett. I cannot tell you how valuable that was to me and my husband. Again, it means our quality of life has improved 1,000-fold. And it's absolutely, it's so important. Just to give you a few of the advances that he's made since being diagnosed, he just turned 8 Monday. He's now 80 to 90% poopy potty trained, which I was told that there was a good chance he would never be. He has reduced sensory issues with food because of help from therapy, reduced sensory issues with touch because of simple brushing, now replaced by increased muscle tone from swimming, exercise, and trampoline time. Dramatic reduction in tantrums due to increased communication skills and lifestyle, which meets Solomon's needs, and adequate sleep for Solomon and our family. And I realize that not all kids respond the same way, or maybe the treatments aren't as effective, but you don't know that until you try. I also mentioned earlier that ignorance can be dangerous for these children. I can see how a parent of an autistic child may simply see the child as being excessively difficult, stubborn, without regard to authority, and I can easily see how that would turn to abuse. And I would hate to see someone who would not abuse a child but be accused of it simply because, they don't have the tools they need to deal adequately with the child. Thirdly, not only is it important to educate professionals, caregivers, family members, but also children with autism. Solomon began attending school at age 3.5 through Marietta Key, which was part of Babies Can't Wait. Again, excellent program. I cannot tell you what it meant to our family. But I will also tell you he was diagnosed as severe developmental delay, which in my mind, yes, his speech, language problems were significantly behind, but he could load and operate software on a computer and do a 100-piece puzzle. And so in your mind, you're like, this is still not right. But the intervention was so important. And today, Solomon is homeschooled simply because we've had trouble finding the exact environment that's best for him. And so I hope that you will consider continuing increased funding to public schools or offering tax incentive to alternative schools or whatever, so that the opportunity is there to educate these children, because although they learn different, they have so much potential. I mean, it is amazing. So I hope that that will be a focus also. And finally, we must continue to offer positive information to educate society. As I stated earlier, I want you to know that autism is not a death sentence or one of complete hopelessness. In fact, although there has been much agony in my journey, there has also been a lot of joy. And had I given them or aborted him, I would have missed out on him saying, like, I'm a sweet girl, or I love you, or whatever. And seeing all the education, all the progress that he's made in his education and elsewhere. And so in a few weeks, I actually will deliver my second child. It's a girl. And I can tell you from my experience that I would not abort her, even if I knew she did have autism, because I see all the progress we are making in this area and believe we are going to continue to make progress, and hope that somehow, some way, we will be able to reach some of the families who are where I was several years ago, struggling, thinking, I can't change the 5th diaper on a 5-year-old, thinking they're never going to be potty trained or whatever, because there is hope, and early intervention and knowledge is power. So I pray that this will inspire you to keep moving in the right direction. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tammy. Appreciate it. Anybody else want to ask a question of Tammy? You did very well, Tammy. Thank you. You are always very articulate. I thought Laurie Mancuso. Oh, there she is. She's so little. She's behind somebody back there. Okay, Laurie.
Thank you, Representative Manning and committee members. My name is Laurie Mancuso, and I have a 6-year-old son and a 3-year-old son. And one day when my son was 5 years old and being very agitated and climbing over everything, I said in exasperation, "What is wrong with you?" He answered, "My brain is broken." I was shocked by the simplicity of what he said and saddened that he knew something was wrong with him. My son has autism. He was always a quiet and well-behaved child. We never went through the terrible twos and thought we were blessed. In fact, the word no never came out of his mouth at the age of 3. In fact, not many words came out of his mouth. His pediatrician said that he would probably speak when he wanted to, and boys took longer to develop. When I got involved with play dates with other children, other mothers, my child never interacted with others. He preferred to play alone. I enrolled him in a Montessori school to try to get him to interact with other children, and that was when the problem began. Since he could not speak well and express his desires, when other children pulled him to do whatever task the teacher was instructing them to do, he bit them. Did he do that because of malice? No, he just couldn't say no or leave me alone. This was his only way of communicating of his desire to be left alone. We had him evaluated at the school system, and he started speech therapy twice a week. By the end of 6 months of one-on-one therapy, his speech improved. We withdrew him from the Montessori school shortly after when they would not follow his IEP and started to punish him extensively. At the end of the school year, his therapist suggested we get him tested by a developmental pediatrician. We looked and found one at the Marcus Institute. He was diagnosed with uneven developmental delays and speech delays. Our insurance paid for that and other therapies that he required. When he turned 4, we enrolled him in pre-K. We had to have him evaluated by the county that classified him as SDD or severely developmentally delayed. Since we did not get a placement in his home school, the only options we were offered was a special needs classroom exclusively or a Georgia lottery-funded pre-K, which was not required to follow an IEP. One was not least restrictive environment and the other wasn't appropriate. There was room in the Head Start program, but the county would not allow a special needs child placement unless they were low income. They were having a hard time finding suitable children who qualified, and my child would not be taking the place of a child who truly qualified. I had to follow the money and spoke with 9th District Opportunities, which held the grant, and they got my child placement in an environment with typical children and who were required to follow an IEP. He did well and was not disruptive to other students, but he started to chew on everything or pica. Mouse cords, game controllers, clothing, staples, rocks, things picked off the ground, and he would cry during his weekly dances held in the cafeteria. I requested OT for his motor skills. Denied. Our insurance paid for a private one who diagnosed him with sensory integration disorder and poor motor skills. Our insurance at that time paid $1,000 per year for therapies. We needed help, and we applied for the Katie Beckett. As part of the application, we needed a psych eval, and we had it done at the Marcus Institute and got our diagnosis of autism and ADHD. That was in November 2004. Was I devastated? Yes. I have a 29-year-old brother who is unemployable, on Medicaid, a loner even with family, lives with my parents, and has PDD. Autism is one of the diagnoses in the family of pervasive developmental delays. The therapies my brother got was through the education system, which were not equipped to help these children. I saw my son as my brother getting older and stronger and not being able to handle his disabilities and going in and out of institutions as an adolescent. I remember visiting him and seeing him so drugged up that he would fall asleep in his lunch. It broke my heart. I look at my son and see his younger brother teaching him to open the front door, climb the outside of staircases, and opening the refrigerator. It pains me that this should be the other way around. Autism affects 1 out of 166 children. This is a sad number. What is also sad is that we cannot afford much-needed therapies for our child. Our insurance is self-insured and is not required to follow state mandates, and autism and all its therapies are excluded. We were denied the Katie Beckett waiver because my son doesn't meet 24 hours per day of therapy. Since March 2005, when we got our first denial letter, I've been fighting with public officials who are poorly educated in their own agency's regulations and school systems who are not willing to step up to the plate to help these children who are falling further and further behind. My son is now 6.5 and is in first grade. He has made zero progress in reading. Every therapy that was included is one that I've had to research and find out from other advocates and parents, but his entire core IEP team is first years and lacks the experience and knowledge and willingness to implement them. I've tried to get him transferred to other schools with an established IEP team, but no success. He has gained 5 pounds in the last 3 years. Given him a bath last night, from his wrist to his armpit, I can go this way, all the way up. He's 35 pounds. His growth curve goes down. He has an eating disorder, severe sensory integration abnormalities, dangerous behaviors, pica, and his adaptive skills are at 3 years, 1 month, more than half his age. All of this is documented, but I still can't get help for him. Early intervention is critical, and already more than a year has passed without therapies beyond what little and inadequate ones the school provides. From the report to Congress on autism, they say, autistic behaviors not only make life difficult for people with autism, but also make life difficult for their families, their health care providers, and their teachers. Families coping with this devastating disorder are searching for answers about its causes, diagnosis, prevention, and treatment. Presently, there are no effective means to prevent this disorder, no fully effective treatment, and no cure. Early intervention is critical for affected children to gain maximum benefit from current therapies. Although the full cost to society from autism is not known, there are tremendous economic and social burdens associated with this disorder. We expect people with autism to conform to our expectations. Compare this with the lack of effort we put into meeting their expectations and appreciating their point of view. If we expect them to make allowances for us in order to live more easily in our world, the least we can do is acknowledge their reality and make allowances for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laurie. It's a very, very moving story. Are there any questions of Laurie? I think she's probably answered a good many of them. Start praying, I think.
Do you have any?
My concern is, what do you do from here?
I don't know. I have gone through the administrative hearing, and we were denied based on the 24-hour of the old level of care. And we got our denial in January. And when I called Medicaid, I was told to reapply, which was another 6 to 7+ months for an application. DFACS has got, for an initial application, you have to have a psych evaluation within 1 year of the initial application. That's $1,500. Georgia Medicaid's policy is it's good for 3 years. There's too many different policies going on that conflict with each other.
I don't think there's an answer, unfortunately, and I apologize. I think Laurie and I have had this conversation before, but we will keep working on it. Thank you very much, Laurie. Appreciate it. Members of the committee, just one quick thing, because I know we've got another committee meeting in the hall. I would ask, because Representative Scheid is out sick today, he has a House Resolution 1887 that we would like to take up probably with a call meeting in the anteroom or someplace close. It's about the House Study Committee on Parental Involvement in Schools, and hopefully he'll be back tomorrow or sometime in the next day or two, and we can take up this resolution in a very brief on-call meeting. Are there any other things to come before the committee? I will stand a motion for adjournment. Okay, so moved. Thank you. Thank you very much, people. Thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.